Independent parliamentarian Udaya Gammanpila says that the debt negotiation team representing the government has failed to convey to the bondholders that domestic debt will not be restructured. Speaking to Indivari Amawatta during our program at Hyde Park on Derana 24, he said that the government's earlier stance of not restructuring domestic debt changed following the message of bondholders that restructuring domestic debt is a prerequisite to restructuring bonds. Meanwhile, parliamentarian of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya, Derana Biz said Sri Lanka should carefully restructure domestic debt to avoid the creation of another crisis.
Y'all have been questioning the stability of the banking sector and the question of EPF funds. I'd like to open with your views voiced recently.
We don't have confirmed official proposal to give our opinion about it. For a week or so, we have been talking about the debt restructuring because government has announced it. There are panic withdrawal of fixed deposits from the banks because when people are in dark, they imagine the worst. We talk about this issue based on assumptions, imaginations, and the unconfirmed information given by unofficial sources. Firstly, government had a strong stand that there will be no domestic debt restructuring. Although they now claim we are bound to do so in terms of the IMF agreement, there is no such obligation, there is no such condition. So, why government has changed its stand all of a sudden? Reason, there is no such obligation, but when government negotiated with our international bondholders, the bondholders have the lion's share in our debt portfolio, so they have insisted that domestic debt restructuring is a prerequisite for restructuring the bonds. So our government's negotiating team failed to convince the bondholders that local debt should not be restructured. That's why we are facing this issue. The government has three options. Firstly, in respect of restructuring the domestic debt, extending the repayment period or maturity dates. Secondly, reducing the interest rate. Thirdly, reduction in capital, which is known as haircut. According to unofficial sources, we don't know the real proposal, there will be no haircut. Only replacement of the existing bonds with lower interest rate and longer maturity date. There are 5 banks in Sri Lanka, of which exposure to the government debt is more than 25% of their debt portfolio. So they have taken deposit from people as fixed deposits, say for 2 years, 10% interest rate. Then they have deposited those funds in government bonds for 2 years because they expect when this fixed deposit matures, they have the funds from the bonds to repay it. Now government says we are going to replace the bonds with a longer maturity date. Then at the maturity date after 2 years, the bank can't expect money from the government. Instead, they issue another bond. But on the other hand, the person who deposited money at the bank, he needs his money back because he may have deposited for 2 years. His son is doing A-levels. Now he wants to send his son for a foreign country for further education. He needs money back. But banks don't have money because government has replaced the money payment with another piece of paper. Then bank has the option of going to the secondary bond market to discount this or trade this, to encash this. But our only worry, when every single bank comes with huge volumes of bonds to trade in the secondary market, will there be sufficient buyers? If there are no sufficient buyers, central bank should come forward to guarantee that if there are no buyers, we will purchase those bonds. Unless central bank doesn't give that guarantee, our banks will face a liquidity issue.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe and the central bank governor too came forward to assure that banking sector stability will be maintained. How do you respond to this?
We don't want a banking crisis. And as the central bank governor and the president of the country has said that they're going to do everything to avoid a banking crisis. And that's absolutely critical. We as a responsible opposition certainly want to make sure that we get out of this problem without it skyrocketing into another banking crisis. The government made an announcement saying that they won't be restructuring the treasury bills. So the holders of the treasury bills, whether they are banks or individuals, then don't have to be worried about that. But the treasury bills, the central bank holdings will probably have to be converted into bonds. Because when you look at it, to resolve this, many things that you have to look at, and the debt analysis done by the debt sustainability analysis done by the International Monetary Fund before they signed up on the agreement. One is you have to bring the debt to GDP ratio down. Sri Lanka is like 128%. For a middle income country, it has to be closer or approximately in the 60% range. So it has come a long way down. But the first target it is to get is below 100. In doing that, the foreign debt will have to be restructured, no question about it. Our position in the SJB has always been is that we are opposed to local debt restructuring, because our position has been that inflation has been at a very high, and if anyone had savings, whether it's in a superannuation fund, maybe the employees' provident fund or other savings, they've already lost considerable value because of inflation, and it will be unfair to basically tax them again through a debt restructuring.